Welcome back to ESBR Boxing. Some big news to chat about tonight. No better men to chat about it with me. I've got Elliot and Greg. So we saw on Twitter this evening. I don't want to say it's done because, as Greg pointed out to me before the call, in boxing, you can never say it's done until you see them in the ring. But Stephen Espitota's gone on to Twitter to say it. Joe Markowski's gone on to Twitter to say it. The two fighters themselves have gone on to social media to say an agreement has been made for Ryan Garcia versus Gervonta Davis in the first half of 2023. Expecting an official announcement tomorrow, potentially date and venue to come. Sort of a fight maybe we didn't think we'd see, maybe one that got away. I'll come to you first, Elliot. Felt as if sort of the last couple of months we were in a real sort of roll in boxing in the negative sense of huge falling apart. Fury Joshua, obviously high profile. Spence Crawford looks potentially further away than ever. And this one sort of looked as if it was going down the same path. Did you expect we'd be sitting here talking so positively about a potential fight between these two?
No, I didn't actually. But I think it's one of those ones, isn't it, where you look at that lightweight division, you go, kind of all these names you can kind of throw around, you mix any of them together, it's going to be a hell of a fight. But it just seemed like, while you always mentioned Tank Davis, it seemed like he was never going to be actually in any of those fights you're talking about. Obviously, you had Haney talking about fighting Lomachenko, obviously Sport Kambosos, and Teo Lopez has been the mix. But it's like with Davis, you're just like, all right, Isaac Cruz, good fight. Romero, yeah, he sort of hyped it up. It wasn't necessarily like the sort of marquee opponent you want. But yeah, I'm buzzing for this. Yeah, this is outside of the kind of heavyweight division. That lightweight division's on fire, and this is one of the fights. I'm a big Tank Davis fan, but I'm also a Ryan Garcia fan, to be honest. And I think, yeah, I'm buzzing for it, mate. Really, I'm buzzing for it.
Yeah, I'd agree with what you said there. It's definitely probably the biggest fight to be made, maybe in terms commercially, potentially outside of the heavyweight division, and maybe factoring in Canelo fights. Come to you with the same thing, Greg. If I came to you a few weeks ago thinking we were chatting here, I don't want to say certain, but looking very positive about a fight between these two in 2023, would you believe me?
Yeah, thanks, Danny. I feel absolutely slaughtered after that. No, listen, I agree with you, mate. It's one of those ones you can't help when you see some certain names getting excited about the fight that really matters. Stephen Espinosa, Joe Markowski, you think, well, this is as good as it's going to get. If it's going to be on, these guys are talking about it and it's on. So, do you know what? It's one of the best fights in boxing. I think the three of us will agree on that. It really, really is a great fight. You've got Ryan Garcia's speed and his combinations against Tank Davis's technique and power. So, yeah, mate, I think it's a great match of styles, and I'm really, really looking forward to it.
I think it's a good a point you mentioned. I don't think over here we sort of appreciate how big these two are in the States, especially sort of Ryan Garcia. I know it's not necessarily our demographic he maybe appeals to, but his numbers on social media are just insane. I know it's maybe a bit early to get into talking about potential predictions and stuff. I know the bookmakers have had Tank a sort of early favorite for this one. Greg, you touched just very briefly there on sort of a couple of the attributes that the guys have. What are your early thoughts on how this fight plays out?
It's a good fight, Danny, but I think Tank stops him. I think if you watch Ryan Garcia, very, very good fighter, and who am I to comment, but he holds his chin in there when he throws his combinations, when he does certain things. And I see Gervonta Davis exploiting that. I think it will be a good fight for a few rounds. Don't be surprised if you see Ryan Garcia really catch Tank off guard, and really maybe even wobble him at times. But I just think that we might be looking at something similar, although the styles are very different. I think we might be looking at a point two of Santa Cruz and Gervonta Davis. I think I can see Gervonta Davis stopping him, and in pretty good fashion in second half of the fight.
I don't think that will be an unpopular opinion. What about you, Elliot? What do you think? Do you agree with what Greg says, or can King Rye spring the upset?
No, it's a brave man that disagrees with Greg, and I'm not going to disagree with him when it comes to something boxing related either. I think there's kind of the thing I struggle with is the kind of attributes thing that you guys were saying, though. That you were saying, I mean, Tank's like what, 5? I was looking at some of the stats, like 5.5. Garcia's 5'10". So there's quite a sizable difference in reach as well. And like I still favour Tank probably. What has he got, like 25 stoppage at 27 or something, or 23, 25, something ridiculous like that. So I still kind of favour him. But I don't know, so I'm actually finding it quite hard to predict. Like I'm almost can kind of see. I don't see Garcia stopping him, put it that way. I think it could be a brutal fight. It could stop late, but I think if it does stop late, it'll be Tank that kind of wins it. But it's hard. It's hard this way out. But I don't want to disagree with Greg because Greg has been proven right many occasions before, and I can kind of see that happening. But equally, there is the difference in size, and like you were saying as well. I mean, Tank's obviously not slow, but those sort of speedy combinations you see Garcia throw, like we haven't really. I think I'm just thinking it out loud again. Like we haven't really seen Tank tested too much. Like you've seen, like Santa Cruz obviously came up in weight, didn't he, as well, when he fought Gamboa, who was obviously beyond his best years. So it's almost like I feel like this is a sort of test he needs, and it could work out badly for him. But fundamentally, I'm leaning towards Tank slightly, but it's closer. My opinions are a lot of predictions I tend to give this far out.
Garcia's got something special in him. He really does, because if you guys look at the way that he dealt with Luke Campbell, we really rated Luke Campbell, Olympic gold medalist, very, very good fighter. That body shot, the boy's got something. He's got world title material in him, but Tank comes from that Mayweather gym. You're thrown in to spar with anyone, and he's probably just came through the really, really hard way, whereas Garcia's like, people say Oscar De La Hoya, but he is like the kind of pretty boy of boxing, whereas Tank just knows there's a certain class in boxing. See if you watch the way Tank counters the straight from Santa Cruz and lands that uppercut to knock him out. That's a special kind of class. Whereas Garcia's dazzling combinations can catch anyone off guard. But if you guys really think about it on the night, I think you know what I'm saying. But I think it's a very, very good fight. And do you know what? Really respect your opinion, Elliot. Kind of want to know what you think, Danny. I know you're kind of taking the lead role and thinking, what do these two guys think? I kind of want to know what you think on this. A very, very interesting fight. So yeah, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, 100% interesting fight. And people chat about, like, I know it's would technically be the three kings or whatever now, this lightweight division, and they throw Tank in there as like one of these, young up fighters. Tank's what, 28 now, and I think he's needed a fight like this for a while. It's interesting you touched on the Luke Campbell fight, Greg, because I think that's the fight where we realised that Garcia was more than someone who threw flashy combinations on Instagram. As you say, Luke Campbell sort of widely regarded as probably the best fighter from Britain not to win a world title. You probably look between that and I suppose the Pedraza one for Tank are probably the two sort of standout wins. But as you say, I can just picture Tank absorbing those combinations from Garcia in the gloves and slipping inside and ripping something big. And yeah, I would make Tank a pretty strong favourite, if I'm honest. But again, there's a lot of, when you've got sort of two, say, younger fighters who haven't been tested against each other at the top of the division, there's a lot of sort of hard to quantify factors, which makes it such a good fight. Just the last point I'd want to bring to you boys. So this looks, if it does, culminate in the fight next year, that it'll be the first joint DAZN and Showtime pay-per-view. I know Eddie Hearn's not involved, but DAZN and Showtime traditionally, not had the best relationship. Are we seeing this as being very much a one-off, or are we gonna, start living in Rainbow Land, and this is gonna be the start of all these big promoters working together? Is there sort of room for optimism here? Come to you first, Elliot, or do you see this being a very much one-off, and they'll go back to slandering each other's an interview in the immediate aftermath?
I mean, if you're looking at optimism when it comes to boxing, you're talking to the wrong man here. Danny, quite frankly, I think. Don't get me wrong. I would love for it to be one of those sort of like cross-promotional things that we see happening across divisions. Even to be honest, not even necessarily even in the States, just even bringing UK promoters, just seeing people actually kind of work together. I think obviously with the issue, one of the main issues of boxing at the moment is you've got so many promoters, so many stables, so many sort of networks not working together that you end up with these cards that are essentially a kind of main event and then nothing underneath, kind of like prospects that are fighting guys that they've kind of found anywhere else that no one's heard of that are kind of got padded records. So I think, to be honest with you, it should be the start of something. But I think it's one of those things, isn't it, really, where it'd almost have to be a super fight like this, or the kind of AJ Fury fight where there's just a gargantuan amount of money, where people can kind of look at each other across the table and go, all right, fuck it, we're earning enough money out of this, we'll kind of bury the hatchet. I don't see it necessarily happening for fights that are smaller in scale, even though I'd like to see that happening. But I see it's encouraging. It's encouraging all the less to see it. And it's encouraging, especially with guys, like Tank, but if you look at people like they've had sort of dodgy sort of promotional, or like sort of like someone like Crawford, for example, has been kind of kept out of fighting anyone that you want to see him fight. Those other sort of guys in the US, it'd be more encouraging if they just sort of opened it up a bit and let the horses run, as Mourinho once said.
Yeah. As you say, it's encouraging, but probably, take cautious encouragement from it. I think obviously we sort of want the fight to do as well as possible, them to make as much money as possible, to think, right, we can start, taking more risks and working together. Just what are your thoughts on Greg? Sort of same question. Is this maybe in a sense a breakthrough moment for the sort of the promotional barriers that have held the sport back for so long?
Yeah, it's a tough one for me, Danny, because I was one of those guys 7, 8, 9 years ago. I really looked up to Eddie Hearn. Really did. Thought he was very admirable. Thought that the cards in Britain, Brook Golovkin, Groves Froch, even the undercards, these shows were amazing. They were something that this country has never seen before. And as the years have went on, as much as I feel inspired by the guy sometimes, I'm a bit disappointed. I have to be honest. I look at certain things with the Conor Benn situation. I look at certain cards that are coming out now, and I'm like, But to answer your question, I just think that I think he's been blocked in America. I genuinely do. I don't know if he's the guy to crack America, but I think that he rubs that many people up the wrong way, even since he's been more respectful. I think until he steps away, these big fights won't happen. I think that this fight, Joe Markowski is there. That's the name that they're dealing with. If it's Frank Smith, okay. But I think that DAZN has been kind of, I don't want to say plagued, but it's one of those things that people look at it now and they think, don't want Eddie Hearn doing well over here. Don't want that. Can't have that. So I think if Eddie Hearn swallows a bit of his pride and he steps back and he thinks of the bigger picture, if he's getting a financial cut out of it, I don't know. But if he can, yes, I see these fights happening more often. However, anytime Eddie Hearn goes to be the front of it, I think it'll be blocked. And that's my honest opinion. And I've told you I was a really big fan of Eddie Hearn. Still do feel inspired by the guy at times, but things aren't the way they used to be with him. And I think that if he steps back in some aspects, I do think we'll see some more of these big fights.
It's a good point you make there. On you remember when Hearn first went into America and he started throwing out criticism left, right, centre at Showtime and Top Rank. And I think you're spot on. I think we're still sort of feeling the ripple effects from that. I think he has very much rubbed up people the wrong way in America, and people don't want to do business with him. And I know Garcia is with sort of Golden Boy, and that's the side of the zone he'll be working with. But I'm sure Espinoza and Showtime were saying absolutely no involvement with Eddie Hearn at this. But
they don't forget.
If we start going on about Eddie Hearn, I'm sure we'll be here a lot longer. In the interest of time, I know it's very late. We'll wrap it up there, boys. Thanks very much for coming on. Big fight. Hopefully we see a date and a venue and the sort of coming weeks, and it doesn't rumble on and we start hearing about issues. But we can only take from what we've seen from the people closest to the fight, the fighters themselves. So we're treating it like it's on. Let us know in the comments any early thoughts you have. Like, comment, subscribe, all that. And thanks again, boys. Cheers.